Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Welcome to our year one Hawza. Today, we're going to keep it short and sweet. Let's just make it 30 minutes short and sweet, but we can try to see if we pick up on this then the next class, next Hawza in a month from now. As you all know, our Zaydi year one Hawza occur every last Sunday of the month, okay? So if you're not sure when to book it, just always go to the last Sunday of the month and book the time of 2 p.m. CET, because we have been able to be quite consistent with keeping that time over the last, actually, a year and a half that this Hawza has been in virtual existence, so to speak. So please, go ahead and feel free to book your calendars for every last, just make a regular appointment every last Sunday of the month. At 2 p.m. CET, I would block 1.5 hours usually, but today I think we're going to make it short and sweet and just make a 30-hour session and try our best to tackle a very interesting subject today. Today's subject is Islam is inclusion and Islam is interreligious dialogue. Okay, so it's actually two principles. Okay. So for those of you who might be joining in for the first time, or maybe want to do a little bit of review of the 10 principles of Islam according to Imam Razvi alayhi salam, who was a Zaydi Imam and who taught for many, many years, over 50 years in Hamburg, Germany, which is where I was lucky to be his last, if you will, master student. Basically, the 10 principles, the first of 3 we've taught already, and those are Islam is humaneness or humanity or humanitarianism. Then Islam is reason, okay? Islam is reason. And thirdly, and we talked about it last time, Islam is freedom, okay? Within a certain context of responsibility, okay? As long as you're willing to take responsibility for your actions, you can act in a free manner. Now, most people enjoy the freedom part, but they don't really like the responsibility part, okay? So the whole point is to appreciate freedom, but take responsibility. So that's what is meant by that principle. So those are the first 3 principles of Islam. Here we have David Durev joining us. I'm just going to invite Mr. David. And then we have the Bulgarian crew plus a Persian plus a Peruvian teacher. And then I think we're fully on board. So David, can you hear us?
Assalamu alaikum, yes.
Alaikum salam, alaikum salam. Okay. So as I was saying, just to recapitulate again, the first 3 principles of Islam, according to Imam Razvi alayhi salam, are Islam is humaneness, Islam is reason, and Islam is freedom within responsibility. Okay, within responsibility, not freedom without responsibility, not responsibility without freedom. Okay, it's not slavery and it's not hedonism. Okay, it's somewhere between hedonism and slavery. Okay, it's Abdullah. But if you actually submit to Allah, then you'll find that there's a lot of hedonism in Islam. Okay, simply by doing the right things and maintaining, being on top of the karmic cycle. Okay, being on top of the cycle of karma instead of being squashed by the cycle of karma, okay? We'll get into those details a little bit in the future, especially year 3, Irfaniyat. But for now, just remember those 3 principles, and we have 10 principles over the course of the year. Today, we're going to tackle 2 principles at once. I want to keep today a little bit shorter, in deference to some of our students who are gonna, not be here too long today. So let's try to keep it short. But if there are any questions in the meantime, please always ask me, and we proceed and continue. Okay, but before, and what I'd like to do is we'll leave in 30 minutes. We'll leave the discussion of Islam is inclusion and Islam is interreligious dialogue, which are the next principles. Inclusion and interreligious dialogue, and we'll go back to the team exercises that you were supposed to have done in the last month. Okay, so hopefully you brought something with you I noticed the chat was a little bit, let's say, relaxed. Okay, so I did try to motivate you all to, in your team groups, to actually discuss with one another and provide each other feedback. So maybe for next time when I give you a team exercise about this, please go ahead and jump in the chat and speak with each other and think about and formulate some different responses to the team exercise, okay? Because the team exercises give a little bit of life and joy and happiness and fun to these exercises, as opposed to just, you know, sitting and studying and reading. It's a little bit boring, okay? So it's better for all of you if you actually join in and try to help each other. And the sohbet is what the Hawza is all about, you know? This whole Hawza culture is about that if we are 5 or 6 in a room, the value is like 15 scholars, okay? 15 guys sitting down and reading and taking notes is 5 guys in a room and discussing it, okay? Why? Because the exchange of opinions and the exchange of energy in the room actually elevates the quality of what is being discussed, and therefore brings a more refined approach and a more consistent quality approach to the opinions and the viewpoints and the examples that we give when we express ourselves in the Hawza, okay? So please, to make it short, please jump into the Hawza chats and give your opinions on the team exercises, okay? So jumping in, I'm going to see if I can share my screen because that would be the quickest way today. Let's see what we have here. I know that I pulled it out. Where did I pull it out? There we go. There it is. Okay, so please let me know if you can. It says that I'm sharing the screen, but it doesn't show me what I actually want. That's not too good. What I want is that document right there, but it's not letting me. Okay, give me 1 second, guys, and I'll fix this. Okay. How about now? Can you see the screen? Yeah, okay, great. So gentlemen, so Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So this is, again, from last year's course material for year 1, but it is in fact always, in year 1, it's always the same material, so please don't mind the date that is mentioned, okay? As you can see, we're very good with the timing because this was last year's March class, and March starts on Tuesday, so we're very much caught up now. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So the 4th and 5th principles of Imam Razvi, according to Zaydi, Bukhari, Islam, is the 4th principle is Islam is inclusion and tolerance, okay? And what do we mean by that? Well, on the one hand, this requires the respect of all Muslims for other points of view in Islam, okay? Now, today, in today's world, unfortunately, you have the Sunnis fighting against the Shia, and the Shia fighting against the Sunnis, and the Sufis fighting the Wahhabis, and the Wahhabis kind of fighting everyone, okay? But this is not Islam. I mean, this is not Tawheed, you know, this is not the Ittihad of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is not representative of what the Prophet Muhammad did when he captured Mecca and he unified the Arabian Peninsula, okay? Now, some of the Arabs, of course, at the time, they didn't appreciate Islam, okay? So they had to be conquered to appreciate Islam, right? However, this was the role of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now we have established Islam. So the role changes, okay? The role changes because we reach a role of brotherhood, inclusion, tolerance. You know, you can see it here in this particular, within Islam, this issue. You can look at Quran 49:9, ayat 9, and Surah 49:10, where the Quran discusses how to deal with your brothers who have a different opinion than you in Islam, okay? So how do we handle it? So we speak to them in a calm and in a collected manner, in a kind manner, but in a confident manner. Of course, we express our opinion finally, and we listen to their point of view, because as the Quran says, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam listens to everyone. We should also listen to everyone. But finally, if one group of the Muslims is oppressing another group, of course, we should push back, okay? We should push back and we should find a middle way. For example, you could argue that the Wahhabis and the Salafis all over the world are creating a lot of tension within the different madhahib or schools of Islam against Ahlul Sunnah, but also against Ahlul Shia, and putting a lot of pressure on the Muslims from inside. So it would be justified for the Muslims to, after trying a certain amount of dialogue and explaining in a kind way that this is not the correct path of Islam, to push them back in different ways, okay? So this is what is meant by Quran 49:9 and 49:10, and I'll be happy to share with you the ayat and have you look at them. And here we speak about within Islam different points of view and different opinions or worldviews within Islam, and there are many, okay? We have the 4 schools of Sunni Islam, we have the 3 schools of Shia Islam, we have the Khariji school, we have the Salafi school, and we should try to be as tolerant and inclusive as possible, even when we reject certain viewpoints, okay? Still, we should try to listen, and we should try to have a good faith dialogue with our brothers and sisters. And of course, the same is valid for all religions and worldviews, okay? So the same approach toward Christianity and the same approach toward Judaism and the same approach toward Hinduism and even atheism, Buddhism, and all these different, worldviews. If we as Muslims manage to represent our religion in a confident and orderly fashion, at the same time listen to those from our other faiths, then we'll actually be able to learn from them, and we'll actually also be able to hopefully impart some of our wisdom towards them as well, so that they could learn what is the best form of Islam. Many times in the Quran it says, speak with them in the best manner, okay? You'll find this ayat many times in the Quran. So, of course, we practice tolerance and inclusion within Islam, but also outside of Islam with the other worldviews and religions. And on the other hand, we should also expect the same quality of respect and tolerance toward us, okay? So this is not just giving and giving and giving. It's also not just taking and taking and taking. This is a balance, okay? This is al-mizan, okay? For those of you that are familiar with al-mizan in the Quran, it means the balance, okay? A balance of giving and taking. We give to our brothers and sisters in Islam, and we receive from them. The same we give toward our brothers and sisters in different world religions, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, etc. And we expect the equal respect coming back toward us, okay? And we want to be respected as a valuable contributor to the world's community, okay? We don't just want to be, these Muslim guys from these old civilizations that are somehow been colonized and somehow struggling to create states and nations and civilizations post-colonization. No, this is not the goal of Islam. The goal of Islam is to, in a sense, be the very best at what we do. So we should strive to be the best at politics, nation building, justice, citizenship, democracy, military, economy, sports, arts, sciences, music, everything. We should strive to be the best. Yes, our goal should be to be the best. We were the best for many hundreds of years, okay? And there are many viewpoints, why this changed or how this declined or dissolved. But the fact is, right now, our position in the global community is not very high. Yeah, it's not very high in terms of contribution, and it's not very high in terms of respect and acknowledgement. Yeah, and we have no one to blame. We have no one to blame but ourselves. Okay, on this issue, And that's why it's very important for us to contribute to the sciences, to the arts, to technology, to innovation, to economy, to world peace politics. Very important nowadays. Of course, we can see with everything that's going on in the world, how important it becomes to negotiate in a confident, successful, clean, judicious manner, okay? This was always the key cornerstone of the Muslims during the golden age of Islam. And unfortunately, we seem to have lost it in the last few hundred years. And it's very important that we pick this up again and we express ourselves with adab and with akhlaq and with the mu'amalat and in the correct manner toward all of our brothers and sisters all over the world, okay? So Islam is inclusion and tolerance. And the ayat that I've chosen for this, you can find it in Surah Baqarah, ayat 62. Truly the believers and the Jews and Christians and Sabians, those who believe in Allah and the last day and perform righteous deeds will have their reward by Allah and shall neither fear nor grieve, okay? So we can see that even the Jews and the Christians and the Sabians, those who believe in Allah and the last day and perform righteous deeds will have their reward by Allah, which of course is Jannat, okay? Of course, it's paradise. What other reward should it be, yeah? So clearly, it's important to respect the rights of our brothers and sisters outside of our own religion, outside of our worldview, okay? And also to create respect for ourselves in the same exchange, okay? Similar to breathing in and breathing out, inhalation, exhalation. So this exchange should also be there. This is the fourth principle, and it's very much linked with the fifth principle, which is Islam is inter-religious dialogue, both with the Abrahamic as well as with all other world religions and worldviews, without exception, okay? Why is this important? Because sometimes you will hear the Muslims say, don't speak with the Jews, okay? Don't speak with the atheists. Okay, clearly this is not Islam, yeah? Clearly this is a deviation from Islam. The Prophet Muhammad is referred to in the Quran as someone who listens to everyone, okay? And also we should listen to everyone. Whether we agree or disagree afterward is a different issue, okay? But first we should listen and we should consider and we should reflect and we should weigh. And by the way, if someone else happens to be in the right, if someone else is correct, as Muslims, we have to say, yes, you're correct, okay? Even if it's a Christian, a Jew, an atheist, what have you, it doesn't matter, okay? We believe in haqqa. Haqqa is truth, okay? This is al-haqqa. Allah is al-haqq, right? And in the Quran, it says, al-haqqa ma al-haqqa wa ma adraka ma al-haqqa. So what is the truth and how do you perceive the truth, okay? So it's asking us this question in Surah 69, okay? 1 to 3. So we should be able and willing to listen to other religions, and if they're telling something that's true, we should take. And if they're telling something not true, then of course we should reply and we should explain politely why it's not true. So this interfaith dialogue is very important, okay? And I'm giving here the example of Imam Razvi alayhi salam in his representative role as a formal leader of the Zaydi community in Hamburg. He always insisted that Islam must listen to all other religions and worldviews just as they should listen to us. He was always sure that religions would fertilize one another. So in other words, help one another to learn and find truth, al-haqqa, rather than taking away from each other, okay? And that Islam would ultimately become more mature and more enlightened as a part of this process, through this open-minded exchange. For this reason, Imam Razvi was able to earn sincere respect from those responsible for other world religions in the Hamburg area and in Germany in general, and partially internationally, for those, especially in the UK and the United Kingdom, that were paying attention, as only a few religious representatives have been able to achieve. He considered everyone to be believers who believed in and trusted in a higher spiritual source of creation and who calibrated their moral compass accordingly. And the ayat that I chose here is from Surah Tawbat, number 61. And here we have the Izan in the background. And there are some among them who talk ill of the Prophet by saying he listens to everyone, which he did. Tell them he listens for your good and he trusts in Allah and trusts the faithful. And he is a blessing for those who believe. For those who offend the apostle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is a painful punishment, sadaqallahu al-azim. And of course, we try to emulate the life of the Prophet Muhammad as best we can as Muslims in our own context in today's day and age. And one way we can emulate very easily is simply by listening to others, okay? By listening to other opinions and other viewpoints and having a dialogue on this basis, okay? I know we have a lot of Bulgarians here in the class today. Also, we have a kind Persian lady, and for us in the room that have exposure to different religions in our daily lives, maybe this is already kind of easy for you, or maybe it's kind of obvious for you, okay? But many times people are not aware of this very simple fact, not only in Islam, but also in other world views or world religions. And therefore, it's always important to remember, dialogue starts with listening to the other side. It does not start with speaking, it starts with listening, okay? And just keeping my eye on the clock, I'd like to thank you for listening for this part of the Hawza, where I'm just presenting the principles. As a team exercise, I'd like to give you all the exercise of sometime in your life when you have been confronted with a viewpoint from someone else, either in Islam or in against another world view or religion, if you will, maybe speaking with a Christian fellow of yours, maybe with an Islamic colleague from a different school or direction. And you know, what was the discussion like, and were you able to apply the principles of inclusion and tolerance? Were you able to apply the principles of interreligious dialogue? So please think about this and take it forward as your team exercise for this month. And any questions or comments at this point about these two principles, please ask me now. Or if you have any comments, please comment now. Okay.
Sheikh, if
Yes.
you are not busy,
I'm fine, by the way, I'm fine. I mean, I'm happy to continue, but I just wanted, in case anybody was leaving a little bit early, that at least we spoke about this, yeah? And then the rest we will do in the chat. So I will just remind about the team exercises in the chat. I hope to see your responses in the chat. And then we will also spend maybe a few more minutes with some question and answer session now. So any questions and comments, please go ahead. Anybody who has to leave is welcome to leave, and anybody who wants to ask questions can ask questions now. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay.
Hassan John, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll invite Herein because I'm sure he has many things to share if he's still here.
Yes, I'm here. First of all, I want to apologize about my English, and with respect, I want to see the viewpoint about first few points of beliefs. You say the first one is humanity. I want to ask, where is the borders? Where is the how you know something is humane? Because I will give you some example from our area. Everyone hear me?
Mm-hmm.
The example is here a lot of people have dogs, and have a lot of dogs that don't have anyone to watch them, and people start to feed them. and you think this is humane, this good thing. But after a year, after 2 years, after 5 years, the population of dogs are increased in such number that people are scared to go out because of the dogs. And you start something like good deeds and think this is humane way to help the innocent animal, but after end you see this was bad decision. This is like I want to know how you perceive what is humane, and everyone, if you ask anyone, is it good to feed some homeless dog? Everyone will say yes. But in the end of the days, you see that same dog that you are feed go and injure your neighbor's kid. And this is my first, my second thought. You say second thing is ilm, is knowledge.
No. Aql, reason.
Aql, yes, aql.
It's different. It's different, but go ahead.
Yes, it's aql, but same thing. You think something is good based on your knowledge about stuff. For example, like 50 years ago, like 100 years ago, people use radioactive materials in their they clean their teeth with radioactive materials because their teeth was shinier and they think this is the best way. But everyone now know this wasn't a good idea. And in history we have so many repeated examples about this. And my viewpoint is how we know, because ilm is in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He know everything, but we don't know everything. And what is the perspective and how, I think, because you say freedom. Freedom is freedom, but we have a lot of sign that we cannot go, and we have this freedom. It's like a road. You have some forbidden about speed. You have some forbidden to go left or to go right, and this keep us from crashing. And what is keeping us from crashing in our first 2 points?
Okay.
I don't know.
Very much.
Did you understand me? I will
fully. Your English is great. Your English is great, so don't worry about that. So first of all, thank you very much for very colorful examples, okay? So we have dogs biting children, we have people using radioactive toothpaste, and we have people driving on the wrong side of the road, okay? So I think we've, somehow we've covered a lot of, let's say, judicial Islamic principles today. I'm very comfortable with that. That's very good. So thank you very much for your questions. I would say the following. I will answer each of your questions individually now, okay? If I have time, so I'm good, yeah? I will answer all of your questions now on the high level and also try my best individually. And then I will actually, but before that, I would like to refer you, please watch the old videos, okay? Because if you go back online and we have a collection of year 1 videos also dating back to last year. So if you go online to the YouTube channel, you'll actually find all of the most current links. Like this video will also again be online, and also the previous years where all of these topics are discussed in depth. So feel free, as you are a relatively new member of the Hawza, feel free to take some time and go back and review the older videos, and then hopefully these principles will be more clear for you, okay? Because of course today we're discussing the 4th and 5th principle, which are Islam is inclusion and tolerance, and Islam is inter-religious dialogue. But nevertheless, I want to honor your questions and try to answer them the best I can. So the first thing is that Islam is humaneness. so how do you manage an outburst of dogs in the village? Okay, so let me tell you a funny story. Actually, at some point I went on a nice little adventure with my wife, and in fact it was on the border of Bulgaria, here in Turkey, in Igniada Forest, okay? And because some things happened, and you know, there were some incidents with the car, and it took forever to get back to Istanbul. I got back to Istanbul maybe 4 in the morning. The first thing I did was I brought my wife home and I put her in bed. And then I went to return the rental car that we had taken. It was a Dacia Duster, okay? And so I returned the rental car. By that time, it was like 5 in the morning and the sun was just going up, yeah? And I was just walking home, you know, extremely tired. I've been driving 5 hours, you know, in the jungle, having a difficulty finding my way back, put my wife at home, finally got rid of the car. I'm extremely tired. What happens in this moment? If you know Istanbul a little bit, there are a lot of, you know, cats and birds, stray cats and stray birds, but also there are a lot of dogs, okay? So what happens is I walk past the store, you know, very tired, innocently minding my business, and this dog comes and it starts barking at me, and it literally bites me in the butt, okay? So this dog literally bit me in the butt. I'm not going to use a stronger word, okay? He bit me in the butt, okay? And fortunately, I was wearing, you know, because we were kind of in adventure mode in the jungle, so I was wearing my Gore-Tex pants. If you know Gore-Tex, it's a very thick material.
Yes.
And actually, I did not really feel, okay, I felt, you know, the jaws clamping and, you know, these teeth in my butt, but it didn't really hurt that much, let's say, although it was a, you know, it was a big dog. It was not a small dog, you know. But fortunately, I was wearing my Gore-Tex. If I were just wearing normal pants like I'm wearing now, it might have been, there might have been blood, or it might have been a worse situation, yeah? But I wasn't, you know, mad at the dog. I mean, you know, he was, you know, somehow reacting out of fear. And basically he just bit me, you know, where he saw the most meat on my skinny body. And basically after he bit me, I just kept walking. I didn't run, but I didn't, you know, stop to fight the dog, or I didn't yell at the dog. I had just walked past the dog bit me, and I just kept walking, basically, okay? So the reason I'm citing this example is just to point out that sometimes it's not so much what happens to you, but it's about how you react to what happens to you that decides who you are, okay? That somehow forms who you are and shapes your level of humanity or humanitarianism, as it were, okay? I could have, you know, smacked the dog, or I could have kicked the dog before he bit me. I saw him coming, obviously. I could have just kicked him in the mouth, you know, it would have been my right to do it, right? Even, and I didn't, I just said, okay, go ahead, no problem, okay? So one thing is, you know, how do you react to what happens to you? This is your level of humaneness, because sometimes you cannot control what happens to you, but you can control how you react to it. So that's on a very personal level I tell the story, okay? And it's a true story. I didn't just make it up. And the kind of more global point of, or let's say, in this particular context, the more global point is, what is the role of the human being in maintaining order in the dunya, okay? What is the role of the human being in maintaining order in the dunya? Dunya is the world, okay? We say the dunya and the akhirah. I guess you're familiar with those terms.
Yes, yes, we are familiar.
Is this world, and the akhirah is what we call the other side, or what happens to us post-human earth experience, okay? And we have been deemed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be the khilafat on this earth, okay? It says it very clearly in the Quran. So your question is a question, very challenging question, because we have to maintain the balance of loving and respecting our plant and animal and bacterial and viral and all kinds of life populations, as well as our resources like oil and gas and, you know, many different resources, all the resources to which we have access on this planet. But at the same time, we have to ensure through a lot of hard work and balance that none of these factors overwhelm the others, okay? So whether, you know, you have too many dogs in the village, or whether you're burning too much petroleum, or whether you're, whether you're favoring a certain species of algae. I like to use the example, I studied ecology many years ago. When you look at a pond, okay, let's say you look at a pond, and there's a certain amount of algae that's on top of the water, okay? And you might have the idea that in order to save the algae, you should remove a certain species of smaller fish that like to eat on the algae, okay? So let's save the algae, okay? But what happens when you take away the fish is that then the algae multiplies and it multiplies and it multiplies, and it multiplies to an extent that it covers the entire surface of the water, okay? Once the algae covers the entire surface of the water, the sunlight does not come in, and so the plants underwater that depend on the sunlight do not get the light, so they die, and then the larger fish die, and then the entire ecosystem dies except for the one algae that has basically taken over the population, right? So what do the ecologists do? They make sure in every kind of subpopulation of the environment that there is a correct number or a balance, an ecological balance of how many different plants, what kind of species, what kind of primary, secondary, tertiary layers of the food chain are interacting at the same time, okay? That is the role of the Khilafat in that sense, that you are responsible for maintaining the environmental ecology in a particular area, okay? So if I would apply it to the dogs, and again, I don't know your village, I hope you haven't been bitten by a dog, I don't want to take over someone else's job who's the dog master somehow, who's responsible. I'm sure he's getting a good paycheck, and I don't want his money. So I don't want to take his job, but to make it short and simple, the balance of humanitarianism is exactly to answer this question. It's exactly to find the correct answer between, somehow the Salafi Islam, which will kill all the dogs, right, and burn them, and the, liberal Western California, I'll just call it California Islam, yeah? The California Islam, which is, just let them live, smoke a joint, and basically if they bite the kid, maybe it's a good experience for the child to be bitten by a dog, this kind of attitude, yeah? So somewhere between Saudi Salafism and California Islam, there's a middle ground of humanity, and it's your job, actually, it comes back to you as the human being and as the responsible one to find the right balance, okay? So it cannot be easy for me to just give you the key and answer it, but you have to design the key yourself, and you have to find the right solution based on the particular facts. And that's in fact what we teach in this Hawza, particularly in years 2 and 3 going forward, is, how do you reach those kind of conclusions? How do you apply the so-called usul al-fiqh, or the roots of jurisprudence, the principles of jurisprudence in Islam, in order to reach fatawa and ijtihad and create new laws and enforce new laws in the environment, with always led by the humane principle. But the principle is always the same, okay? So the principle is always to act in a humane and humanitarianist way, okay? And to find your way between the extremes and try to go sirat al-mustaqim. So nothing changes the principle, but it's just like, how do you apply it in a particular context, okay? So I hope that answered your first question. Okay, so now your second question was, what about the aql? What about radioactive toothpaste? I'm glad I've never used... Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. I need to leave now.
Okay, alaikum salam. I'm glad you stuck around for this very interesting subjects. Thank you very much. And we hope to see you in the chat. Please remember to join us in the chat, inshallah. Thank you for joining us. Erwin Chan, okay, so the radioactive toothpaste. Well, we were just talking about this subject. You may be surprised that we were just talking about radioactive toothpaste in the last year 2 Hawza, okay? 2 weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we talked about a subject called Nazar ul Ilm, okay? Nazar ul Ilm, this is something that we don't usually go into in year 1, but I'll just drop this usul principle now. Usul al-fiqh are the the kind of principles of Islamic law, okay, to make it simple, if you're maybe aware of this term, yeah. And one of the usuli terms that we use in Zaydi Islam is called Nazarul Ilm. Nazarul Ilm means the knowledge of science in any particular moment, okay, as a backdrop to your informed decisions, okay. Now, one thing that we noticed in the discussion that we had in the Hawza, 2 weeks ago in year 2, when we talked about this, was that the particular level of scientific knowledge changes, okay?
Yes.
It changes in different eras. So in other words, many hundreds of years ago, everyone thought that the earth was flat, okay? And that the sun revolved around the earth, okay? Now we believe that actually the earth is round, more or less round, and it revolves around the sun, okay? And now there are even new theories saying that even the sun revolves around a larger sun, okay? And that in fact, in the galaxy, there's a lot of movement between the stars, and that even the galaxy itself is in movement, okay? Around a larger galaxy. So, and I'm not saying that I agree with all that, and I don't have contingent proofs, and that's not the point of this discussion, okay? What I'm saying is that the overall perspective of what is ilm, or what is today's ilm, changes with time, okay? However, Allah has given us the role of khilafat in this present moment, okay? So we can only act to the best knowledge and wisdom that we have in a particular moment. So, of course, the aql is limited in that sense, and it's limited by many things, by the way, but this is just one of the things. One of the things that limits the use of aql on any human being is that, we use aql based on the context of the times in which we live, okay? And on the knowledge that's available in the time in which we live. Now, when we say aql, we say that Allah is al-aqil, okay? Allah is the one with all of the reason, okay? We as human beings can only access a very small part of that reason, okay? But yes, whatever we can access, we are obliged to access that, okay? We are obliged to do our best, okay? It's a part of our jihad to access this aql as the best we can and use it to formulate the best of our opinions, okay? For example, radioactive toothpaste in the old days might have been a great idea, so people used it, okay? Now we think it's a bad idea because maybe it can cause genetic mutation, okay? Well, there are some people I know that I wish they would use radioactive toothpaste because I think a little bit of genetic mutation would be very good, okay, for them, yeah? But many times, if you ask them, could you please use radioactive toothpaste and somehow change genetically, they won't do it, okay? Because they don't want to. But you can take a similar example with the mRNA vaccine for COVID, okay? So you can take a very similar example, should we take the COVID vaccine? And in fact, again, we were talking about this a little bit in year 2. Should we take the COVID vaccine? Well, apart from travel restrictions and, going to restaurants and all of that kind of stuff, restriction of freedom of movement, that's not an easy question, And you have many, many scientists on the one side saying, if we don't take the mRNA vaccine, which is a very new and unsubstantiated technology, then we're risking, losing the lives of millions of people all over the world, okay? On the other side, there are many hundreds of scientists also saying, actually, the effect of taking the vaccine long-term, because it's unknown and because the side effects could be worse than the actual COVID itself, okay? So you have, the smartest and most well-trained professional doctors and scientists and virologists and pharmacologists, discussing this subject on a very high level, and you don't have a conclusive answer, okay? So aql and reason does not mean that there's only one specific answer to everything, okay? And I understand that that's very hard for most Muslims to deal with, because we tend to have a very binary worldview, and we look at the world as black and white, okay? We are the mu'mineen and they are the kafirun, okay? But unfortunately, that's not how the world works, yeah? Especially not today's world, yeah? If you look around, there are many mu'mineen who have one viewpoint, and then there are many mu'mineen that have another viewpoint, okay? And the viewpoints are equally valid, you know? You cannot say that just because, you know, one group of mu'mineen have an opinion, it's wrong. But you know, as we said here, he listens for your own good, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? So you need to be able to listen to all of the opinions, and then you need to be able to do your best to form a judgment and to apply it in whatever is your sphere of responsibility, okay? So the point at the end of the day is, you know, are you just a guy, you know, yourself living your life? Okay, do what you want, you know? But do you have a family? You know, do you have a wife? Do you have children? Or maybe you're CEO of a company, or maybe you are working as a policeman, or maybe you are a judge, or maybe, you know, you're captain of a sports team, or whatever the situation is. You know, you're a teacher of electronic online Hawza, or whatever it is, and you have a certain set of responsibilities additionally to yourself, okay? Then suddenly your use of the aql becomes even more important, because your access to the aql will define the quality of your actions, okay? Of your judgment, and therefore your action, or as it may be, non-action, okay? If you cut off this access to the aql, then in a sense, you're degrading the quality of your response to the situation, okay? Should I use radioactive toothpaste or not? Now imagine that someone only had a textbook from 1950 and they only read this. And someone said to them, well, there's a new textbook from last year, and last year's textbook has a different opinion. Would you like to look at it? Okay. If you said no, okay, I would like to stay with this old textbook that has the radioactive toothpaste being good because that's what I've done all my life. Okay, you're not using your aql, okay? What you should have done is you should have accepted the other person to present their opinion, listen to their opinion, open the book, read the book, you know, put both books next to each other and judge, you know, whether it's correct or not correct to use radioactive toothpaste. And then most likely the new textbook would have had good arguments and good reasons why it's better to close the old book and go with the new book, and basically, in that sense, use aql in order to take the next step, which is avoid radioactive toothpaste, okay? So aql is very closely linked, if you like, to the fourth and fifth principles that we studied today, inclusion and tolerance and inter-religious dialogue, because it is only through aql that you will even be able to listen to other people's point of view, incorporate them into your balance of truth, and basically be able to act or not act correspondingly to that, okay? So aql, as a big picture, is this kind of fountain of reason and wisdom and intellect, okay? A higher intellect to which we as human beings have individually very small access. But according to our philosophy or fiqh or worldview, kalam really, as Zaydis, you know, it's our responsibility to use our access to that aql to the highest degree. And really anyone, you know, using radioactive toothpaste today, you know, basically you would say, okay, you carry the consequences of that, okay? You chose to not use the aql. You chose not to listen to others, and you chose not to be informed about the latest developments. So it's your fault at the end of the day. It's your responsibility, okay? Whether you use the aql or not, it's your responsibility, okay? And the situation becomes worse when you have, as I said before, you have a greater responsibility. You're a father to a family, or you own a large company, or, you know, you moderate some kind of sports event or something, suddenly your judgments become, important not only for you but for everyone. Okay, so if you then don't use the aql, okay, then your in that sense, your sin, if you will, your crime is multiplied by the number of people that you affect and by the size of the effect it has when you didn't use the aql. Okay, so this is why you should use the aql. And to your third question, freedom, what was your example again? Forgot. First of all, does that answer your second question?
Yes, you answered the question, but this is not like the question. I know everything that you say, and I agree with that. But I want to see because not everything is like you say binary, 1 or 0, have very different shades of the gray, and this was just for me to understand how you perceive the world, and just the question. It's not like I excuse me, just my little daughter is like crying.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. No reason for excuse.
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum from the house.
And because you say freedom, and nowadays everyone say freedom is everything, we must respect freedom and so on and so far, but freedom must have some boundaries, and I think everything is this life. I have if you let me, I have very different perspective about everything that most of people that I communicate. I don't care what ulama, sheikh, and what everyone says. I go.
Welcome to the Hawza. You're basically falling on fertile soil. Okay, so
yes, and I go in when I go somewhere else. Maybe I go in Europe. I see the street is clean. I see they care about environment. They care about. They don't tell you must be right. They have walls. When I go in West, I see the Islam what must be.
yes.
But
Exactly.
when I go East, I see in the streets have rubbish, garbage, and etc. You see the economic state, you see wars, you see everything that isn't Islam.
Yes, I fully agree with you.
And they say, this is right, this is wrong, this is right, this is wrong. But in the end of the day, the most important thing for me is what really is the result. I care about the result and the journey. But we must see the result in everything, because I'm engineer and I think like I make some stuff, and what will be result? I want my deen, my religions to go to positive things, to have, because we say Islam must be knowledge, but when you see the top 20 university, no one is in Islamic country.
Because they didn't visit our Hawza.
Yes, and for that reason, I want to understand how you think and how you perceive everything from the beginning, and it's interesting for me.
Okay, you're really asking big questions tonight, so let me see how best I can answer them. Yeah.
I don't want you to answer it. No one is. I don't think we have human alive that can answer all the question. But the interest part is how we must take, because this is so big question that you cannot answer it. I understand that, and I don't want ready answer. I want to know what is the path that every answer must be put to.
Yeah, that's clear. I mean,
because you see, we cannot say we are the best because everyone say, yeah, we're the best ummah, we're chosen one, and so on and so far. But when you look around, you see we're not. We're not, because has people with more good healthcare, economical, they are greater than us. They go into space. We stay here and measure our beards.
Well, as I said, I mean, welcome to the Hawza, because this is basically many of the criticisms that you speak come from the heart of Imam Razvi alayhi salam. I can really say that we addressed all of these issues, many of these issues, simply by the virtue of self-reflection, okay? The virtue of self-reflection, the capacity of self-reflection, okay? The capacity to be able to stand in front of a mirror and look at yourself and see who you are, okay? Like now I have this camera pointed toward me, so when I speak, okay, I can look at my actions, I can say, okay, today I'm wearing a yellow sweater, a white hat, a somewhat untrimmed beard. You know, I'm using my hands to talk. I have the Imam Ali thing in the background, so I can see a few things about myself. You similarly have a nice plant, you have an interesting curtains, and a black sweater, and you have a lovely daughter somewhere in the background, okay? So that says about you, okay? So what we are saying is that if you spend 5 minutes a day just looking in a mirror, this is actually a very interesting practice of irfaniyat, which happens in year 3, okay? But I'll just let you know now. If you spend 5 minutes every night just to look in the mirror and just reflect on the day and just reflect on the things that you did, what things did I do good, what things I could have improved, you know, just this small practice will, you know, dramatically change your life, okay? And make you a more conscious person, a more aware person in terms of you, in terms of what you're doing and what you're contributing toward the ummah, okay, if you will, okay? This is, again, this is not a subject we have to talk about in detail now, but this is something that simply is a nice practice for you to work on, okay? If you're asking the big questions, you should be able to at least try to answer them for yourself, okay? Because you are, in fact, the only one that can answer them for yourself. No one can answer them for you, finally, yeah? But you have the obligation to kind of answer them for yourself. Or let's say you can answer them for yourself if you want. If you don't want, do something else, okay? But as long as you are interested in this, this is a method that can help you to get there. Just to spend 5 minutes every night, whether you're in front of a mirror or you're simply, you know, by yourself in a room and you have peace and quiet, to just think 5 minutes, what were the 3 good things I did today and what were maybe 2 or 3 things I didn't do so good that I could do better tomorrow. Now, if everyone in the Islamic Ummah did this practice, obviously we would be in a completely different place than we are today, okay? But as you said, and I think we all in this house, at least, you know, we have a kind of consensus on that the Ummah is not where it should be today, okay? Absolutely, the famous phrase from Muhammad Abdu, the Islamic reformer of the past century, was, I went to the West and I saw Islam, but no Muslims. I returned to the East and I saw Muslims, but no Islam, yeah? And this is very much, unfortunately, it's very much true. And my dear Arab brothers and sisters are always a little bit offended when I ask questions like, you know, why is it that we're last in innovation and science, but we're first in corruption and child marriage, yeah, in Islam, yeah, in the Islamic countries, okay? So clearly, when we talk about reason and freedom and dialogue and inclusion and humaneness, we're pushing a lot of buttons on a lot of the different schools of Islam, more than the schools that practice today's practice, okay? And therefore the teachings that we teach are provocative for many, okay? And they're rejected by many. So if you take these principles that we're teaching here to the Wahhabis, you know, I give you 5 minutes to basically sign your last will and testament and basically prepare for death, okay? And if you, on the other hand, approach other schools like the Shia schools, or to some extent the Hanafis, who are kind of the most open-minded Sunnis for the most part, then you might find, you know, some people that are ready to engage on this level of self-reflection and self-criticism, okay? Again, he listens to everyone, okay, is in the Quranic ayat that we were talking about. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ listens to everyone. It also means you listen to your own self and your own world, and you're aware or you're conscious of what's going on around you, okay? This is what aql finally is, or reason finally is. It's about access to consciousness, okay? And finally being able to, because you said accept your limitations, you said freedom and so on. I gave the extreme example of California Islam versus the Wahhabis, okay? And obviously the amount of freedom, you know, that we like to give in Islam, maybe somewhere around yeah, you can say this between these two extremes. But at the end of the day, finally, you're free to do what you want, you know? As long as you're willing to accept the consequences at any given moment, the final truth is you're free to do whatever you want, okay? No one is, and if somebody stops you and they cut your head off, okay, that's the consequence, okay? But you choose in this moment what you want to do. Finally, you're free. You can go in the street naked and kill the dogs, okay, with radioactive toothpaste. Okay, you can do what you want. Okay, but you just have to be willing to bear the consequences. Okay, that's the only thing. And that's what Imam Razvi is teaching. He's saying Islam is freedom within responsibility. That's what I said. And if you watch the video from last week, and if you watch our last year's Hawzas on the same subject, it's always the same. We're not saying Islam is freedom and no responsibility. We're not saying that, okay? This is not California Islam. And we're not saying, you know, we're not trying to somehow define freedom and limited and in the back way and somehow like this. No, we're saying Islam is freedom, but within responsibility, you take responsibility for your own actions. That's the only thing we're saying. And as far as the criticism of the Ummah is concerned, if we want to, again, become in the best universities and the best military and the best politicians and diplomats and scientists and artists and musicians and sports players, of course, you know, it's not going to happen until we, again, reach a level of perception of consciousness, which is very much drawn from the aql, okay? It's very much drawn from reason, okay? Why the West is so far ahead of the, you know, eastern part of the Muslim world is because at a certain point, the Enlightenment period came, if you're familiar with the Enlightenment period of philosophy, after the Renaissance, and basically opened the door of European thought to reason and rationale and sciences and accepting these within the context of European thought and worldview, okay, which were not there before. Before it was the Muslims actually who believed in the aql and believed in hikmah, wisdom, and believed in ilm and the sciences. And, you know, the Muslims were actually ahead for about maybe 800, 700, 800 years worldwide in all of these different sciences and fields and arts and studies, okay? Mathematics, architecture, engineering, everything, the Muslims were ahead, okay? When the Muslims honored the truth and put the truth as the first principle, then this happened, okay? But when the Muslims started to, my aqidah is like this, and my madhab is like that, and my government says this and my bureaucracy says that, then my culture says this and my culture says that, and we slowly start to leave the aql, then we start to decline and decline and decline until we get into this kind of miserable, quite pathetic situation that we're in today, okay? So this is the base of the positions, let's say, of Imam Razvi alayhi salam on these subjects. And you are free to please let me know if we answered your question or if you would like to give more feedback at this point.
Thank you very much. Yes, I understand a lot of stuff now. And I don't know, it's half time for questions anymore.
We're here. I mean, no problem. Go ahead. Feel free.
Okay, I will go.
But if you can just keep it to the principles, please, because we have 5 principles now, okay? So if we can keep it to the 5 principles, I would appreciate that. Okay, other than that, anything you want.
I don't know my questions, how to formulate it. But for example, you have one company that has some field of working, but the company has some make some watery or some another stuff like that is not halal. And is it okay to have shares in this company or is not? My viewpoint is if you have some good thing with little bit bad in it, is whole thing is bad, or if you have something good with perspective background and have something bad, it's okay. This is a very interesting topic for me. You are not obligated to answer it. I just want to see how you think. This is my goal. Not I don't want to offend you. I don't want to just pick up some questions. Just I think we have a good base to be productive and to know a lot more about you, and you will know more about us.
I mean. So first of all, with regard to your question, there's just one of you who's asking, so I guess it's just you, and you're just speaking for yourself, and I will do the best that I can to answer your question nonetheless. So Hassan John, I think in year 2...
Sheikh, if you allow me here to, maybe it will be a good idea here to say, because the other 2 participants, David and Erwin, they are also interested in such topics, our economy of the today and cryptocurrencies and so on, to know for them that these things are put in the program to be studied more deeply in the 2nd year through the different principles of
Definitely. I was about to go into that. So thank you so much, Hassan John. But yeah, I mean, it's very good thinking, because I was just going to say that can be our next ijtihad in year 2 after we finalized the question of whether or not, because we have actually, you'll be interested in this, he's saying, John, that we have actually in year 2, we have an example for an ijtihad, which is government spending for small businesses who are suffering because of the COVID pandemic halal? Okay, so this is our year 2 ijtihad question. And the second ijtihad question could very well be, are we allowed to make investments in cryptocurrency? Okay, is cryptocurrency halal? Yeah, so that could very much be an interesting, you know, if we have time this year, Hassan John, to go into another ijtihad. Let's see how far we come with the usul al-fiqh. But why not? Why not do that? Why not do that as another ijtihad? But there are many ijtihad that we could do, but that could just be one of them. And one of them could also be, but I think it's a bit more, let's say, simple question answer, which is, are you allowed to invest in a company which has some products that are halal and some products that are haram, or more actually kind of more common, what people are doing these days is they're investing in funds, you know? So they'll invest some money in a fund, and the fund will hold the shares in the different companies, and some of the company shares will be in companies that are doing things that are halal, and some of the company shares might be in some companies that are producing things that are haram, okay? So the question is, are you allowed to invest in it or not? Well, firstly, I want to say that if I mutate to your investment advisor, I would like 7%, okay? I'm very gonna give you a good deal, only 7%, okay? I'll take 7%, and you can have the 93%, okay? On the growth, not on the base, just on the growth. I'm a very nice guy, yeah? So I'll take 7%. My next point is not quite as important as that, is if you decide to invest, okay? Again, you know, are you investing using the aql? Again, it always comes back to this, okay? Are you using reason? Are you using humaneness, okay, as your guiding principle in your investment strategy? Are you including all people and cultures when you make an investment, okay? Are you, you know, somehow not limiting anyone else's freedom by this investment? You could invest in a jail, okay? Is that what you want to invest in? You could invest in jails. There are jails being built all over the world, okay? And they're very profitable, okay? So you could go ahead and invest in a jail and take away someone else's freedom, okay? But maybe that person, you know, deserved punishment because of something that they did, okay? But maybe the jail punishment is not an effective punishment, but maybe it is, okay? So there are many different questions, and to answer that, you know, you could be very safe and conservative and say, I will only invest in a fund that has been judged by a Sharia investment board to be halal, okay? So you can find many of these funds today, particularly on the London Stock Exchange. If you are interested in halal financing and halal investment, you can go to the London Stock Exchange and you will find a whole bunch of halal certified investment opportunities, mostly funds that have different shares in Islamically proven companies, or companies that have been judged by a Sharia board to promote products and services that are halal, okay? So that's one thing you could do if you were, you know, concerned about this somehow and you wanted to go sirat al-mustaqim, okay? It's a very personal question. It's your money finally at the end of the day. You know, who am I to judge what you do with your money, okay? It's the freedom that you have as an individual, but again, you also carry the responsibility. So this is again the third principle, okay? It's your freedom to do what you want with your money, but at the end of the day, you carry the responsibility for your action, okay? Personally, if I knew that a company, let's say, for example, in agriculture, okay, or in different foods and drink and this kind of thing, were marketing beer and marketing pig meat, swine meat, and that kind of thing, even if it's only 5% of the whole, I'm not going to invest in it, okay? But that's a very personal choice, okay? I'm very conservative with my investments, so I don't want to invest in that. You know what I mean? But you can say, okay, but 95% of what they're investing in is, you know, maybe it's water, maybe it's infrastructure, maybe it's, you know, for hospitals. So investing in it is a good idea. Okay, that's your choice. But I wouldn't do it. But again, it's a very personal choice, yeah? So, so it's very much your money and it's your freedom. And in today's world, you know, you can go online and you can ask Sheikh Google and Sheikh Google will give you all kinds of different imams and different, qazis and these kind of guys that will give you different answers according to their opinion. But finally, Issa and Jan, you have to find your own opinion and you have to make your own investment decision. So no one can really take that away from you. And I would urge you to take that question and go within yourself first and foremost to judge where do you want to invest your money, because it's your own personal decision. And at the end, you will be responsible for whatever you invest in, okay? No matter what anyone tells you, no matter what any imam says or any sheikh tells you, finally, the investment choice is yours. Okay, does that help you? It probably confuses you more because I didn't say yes or no.
Yes, this confuses me more.
Good.
And this is a good thing because I will keep thinking about the topic. Because in this day, with this isn't a company, this one cryptocurrency, and some brother says it's haram, someone say it's halal, but I see, because you know Binance, maybe this is the biggest crypto exchange, and they have same things, and the ulama say for them they're halal. But when we apply same principles for the smaller exchange, they say it's haram. But I think maybe someone paid to someone to say this is halal and this is haram and so on and so
It
forth.
sounds like some backdoor dealing, right? Because
yes,
why should one be halal?
Because I spoke, I don't know, are you familiar with that? But have some small exchange like paying swap. The main deal of this cryptocurrency is to exchange between different cryptocurrency. This like just exchange, but because the exchange support lottery and give some loans to third parties, they say this is haram. But this is like 1% or 2% of whole idea. The idea is completely different of what is haram. They just have one lottery because you go there, buy tickets, and you can. But I don't go and I don't buy. I buy shares for the exchange. And I don't know how to proceed. If one piece of whole is haram, is whole thing is haram, or it's like a shade of gray. It's not recommendable, but it's plausible.
Okay, I definitely want my 7% now. I'll have it in advance, please. And what I will say to that is that there's a nice hadith of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, which is basically accepted, I think one of the few hadith that is kind of universally accepted in Islam, where all the scholars agree. Okay, even the Salafis, even the Shia, even the Zaydis, even the Mu'tazili, even the Hanafis, and it's that the Prophet has said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if you're not sure whether you should do a thing or you shouldn't do a thing, then don't do it. Okay, this is the famous kind of hadith to make sure that you don't take steps in the wrong direction if you're not sure that it's the right direction. So I'll just leave it at that because I think diving too much more into it would explode the bounds of this particular Hawza. But again, I do highly appreciate your questions. And certainly in year 2, when we go into the Usul al-Fiqh, we will study these kind of questions in a lot of detail, okay? Because, to answer this kind of question in Islamic format, according to the Zaydi fiqh, it takes a lot of detail and a lot of work. It's a lot of hard work to do this. You cannot just take your halal stamp and you stamp and say halal, okay? Or you cannot just take your sword, your bloody sword of Saudi Arabia and cut everyone's head off and say it's haram, yeah? So you need to, unfortunately, you need to put in hard work. You need to learn the principles of year one. Inshallah, when you've got your certificate for year one, then you can come join us in year two. And in year two, we will learn the principles of usul al-fiqh, and there we will go more detail into these kind of questions. And then you should have the ability yourself after year two to kind of tackle these questions on your own, okay, for the most part, and maybe also someday to teach them to others, inshallah. Okay, so with that being said, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just, I also want to repeat that basically year two, we are studying exactly the tools which we need to arrive to decision of such kind of questions and precedents, which Herein is pointing to. What are the rules or principles we are following to decide or to arrive to the conclusion what's the right decision, at least related to us and possibly to the people which are connected to us. And for example, hypothetically, Herein have studied this principle, and I also have studied this principle. It doesn't mean that I and Herein would arrive to the same conclusion, but the important thing would be that both my decision and decision of Herein, they are educated decisions which are based on a good ground and based on knowledge.
Yes, and not only so much that, I agree with what you're saying, but these kind of decisions should give a fulfillment of surety and certainty and confidence before making the step, okay? In order to fulfill the hadith that we were just discussing, which is a major barrier if you think about it. Before I act, you know, I should be fully sure of what I'm doing. That's how you would turn the hadith around, right? Because the Prophet is saying, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if I'm not sure if I should do a thing, whether a thing is good or not, then I better first not do it, right? So turning that around, it means basically don't do anything unless you're extremely sure of what you're doing, right? Unless you're sure of what you're doing, don't do anything. So in many ways, it's a call to non-action, yeah? It's a call to doing less rather than doing more. It's a call to stepping out of the karmic cycle of action, okay? Action, reaction, action, reaction, action, reaction, action, reaction, action, reaction, and the cycle continues, okay? So rather than that, you know, take one step out of the cycle and observe the cycle for what it is. And in cryptocurrency, I think it's a great example because there's a very large element of gharar, okay? I don't know who of you are familiar with the term gharar, but gharar is a Quranic term that means speculation, essentially, okay? So there are a lot of speculative elements in certain kinds of investments. Cryptocurrency at the moment has, you know, fallen dramatically after having risen dramatically, after having fallen dramatically, after having risen dramatically. And the fact is that most people don't understand what a blockchain is, okay? If you honestly ask 100 crypto investors, what is a blockchain, okay? 98 of them do not know what a blockchain is, okay? I'm telling you now. If you don't know what a blockchain is, okay, first of all, I don't think you should be investing in crypto, okay, because you don't even know what cryptocurrency is and you're investing in it, okay? So that's one barrier that, you know, it's just an example, because we're taking examples now, yeah? It's just an example of the principle of reason and hadith and Quran and how these things work together. If we take the principle of gharar from the Quran, speculation being haram, and if we take this kind of hadith, if you're not sure what to do, don't do it. And we take the facts of any particular case, as Hassan Jan was saying, we'll go more into the detail. There are many principles of usul, and we don't have the time now for sure. I need a full year with 2 classes a month just for year 2. But this is the kind of thing that we solve in year 2, or we try to find the principles of usul in order to give us the capacity to make these kind of judgments. First, for ourselves, and then if we should ever be in the responsibility for other people, inshallah, then also for these others, for these other human beings, all right? And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I don't wish to be impolite, but I think we should wrap it up for today, okay? So I thank you all very much. I urge you to look into the earlier videos from this year and from the past years on the channel whenever you have some time, and you can familiarize yourself with the first, now it's 5 principles, okay? And then you should be kind of caught up somehow for the remaining houses, because especially for those of you that are interested in continuing your participation and you would like to join once a month, and you would like to write a final thesis and you would like to get a certificate of completion, it's important that you try to come to the next Hawza as much as possible and get caught up and be familiar as much as possible with the material, okay? So having said that, thank you very much. Let's please read Al-Fatiha to close. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Thank you very much. It was a very enjoyable and lively Hawza, and we hope to see you next month. And I will again place the question for the team exercise. Give us an example of how you were confronted with a situation of inclusion and interreligious dialogue in your lives. Please answer in the chat, and inshallah we have a nice session going over the next few weeks. If anyone has any questions until the next Hawza, please either ask in the chat. You're always welcome to ask in the group chat, or you can just send me a message directly. Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Have a nice month.
Thank you very much. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.